What? What? Testing, 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 testing. What is good, everybody? What is going on live on the DST show? It was a day off, so it's like, forget it. Let me watch Saturday Night Main event. If anybody that didn't know what happened, it's pretty obvious. We, of course, had a big main headline. 70-year-old Goldberg in his final matchup in his hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. What made his career for him, faced off against Gunther for the World's Heavyweight Championship. We even had 3 other big matchups that were ongoing on live TV, except probably the Randy Orton-Drew McIntyre match. Somewhat of relevance with LA Knight with Seth Rollins, and Solo Sikoa faced off against Jimmy Uso for the United States Championship. No tag division, no lower mid-card staff, bare minimum of build-up, just to squish in a 2-hour match. And the booking for the Jimmy Uso Solo Sikoa match, even though most of the storylines were including mainly Jacob Fatu feuding ongoing. But no, we can't do that. So Solo faced Jimmy Uso because of the correlation of the storyline with him. But most of what I saw with Jimmy was just feuding with Drew McIntyre, involving talking smack about him and his career and the shortcomings for title opportunities. So mostly what happened was just build up for the next SummerSlam pay-per-view for probably night 1. And the only excitement over that show is Jelly Roll's going to be performing in a match with Randy Orton facing off against Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre after an assist goes wrong that cost McIntyre the match. It ended up in a run. Ended up with Jelly Roll coming in to help out Orton after Orton got sucker punched, then gets Claymored. So you know what that means? SummerSlam 2015. Look, goddamn, when Triple H can book, people contemplate what he does over Vince McMahon. Vince just does it out of left field, but it can still be repetitive. Triple H just makes sure that it's still over the shareholders and it's still repetitive, bro. Like the bare minimum was literally done here today. Like the very bare minimum. Like, that's most of the excitement coming over in the fans, to see Jelly Roll compete and take over the screen time from other wrestlers while they were promoting Evolution with female superstars jam-packed like Io Sky, Jade Cargill, and then later on Naomi came and jumped Jade Cargill with Bianca Belair coming up because of the correlation involving their feud, knowing all 3 of them together were tag team partners and won the women's tag titles together, involving and developing like Naomi turning heel. The saddest thing is nobody's still going to watch the pay-per-view. Like, damn, what are we doing, folks? You guys don't want to watch the women's division flourish? How dare you? You know why. WWE has done a bare minimum job of promoting. A majority of the card is pretty underwhelming to justify dynamic ticket pricing around this economy when you're doing the bare minimum over your elevated talent. Like, we shouldn't be seeing NXT anything when we have like 2 new mid-card women belts, a tag division, and a massive more assortment of women's divisional like factions. Like this is now like upper lower to top card that we still want to entrust the women's division of like drawing. And this is a 2-hour show over the late hour while All In was still going. And the only excitement that people had over an All In was possibly Bryan Danielson coming back and geriatric Edge. I'm sorry, Cope. I'm letting that pause sink in. Cope. Get on the run. Get in the run and rescue after his son, his prodigal son, Nick Wayne, turned on Christian Cage after losing a 3-way tag match to Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin of the Gingerfied Hurt Syndicate. Turned against him using with the help of FTR. Everybody in on it, about to hit the concerto. Edge comes and saves him. Then, immediately, he references what he said to him before when they were in their blood feud, saying, go find yourself instead of go F yourself. So, the correlation over was expected that they were going to turn them into a pseudo tag team in the near future involving Edge and Christian Cage. Or Cope and Cage. They're going to probably say that for the tag name. What y'all think down below, bro? Because y'all can't be lying to yourself saying that you guys are going to get off work and sacrifice your hard-earned money to be like, yeah, I'm going to watch Evolution. Why? I'm in between jobs at the moment, bro. I'd rather watch Jey Uso with the world title than this. And this is around 24 hours from now. So you guys, I'm going to put it over on the screen. So it's Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley for the women's world title. Trish Stratus versus Tiffany Stratton. That was expected after their impromptu tag team to go against Nia Jax. NXT women's title with JC Jane. You guys probably remember her from Toxic Attraction against Jordynne Grace. We have and this is with the Intercontinental Women's title in the 3-way. We have the U.S. Women's title that I don't think it's been on TV like inconsistently on SmackDown for like a whole minute. And a multi-women's tag match, 4-way, for the women's tag title involving Kairi Sane and Asuka, Sol Ruka and Zayara from NXT, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss because of their obligation. They were like on and off, but they're supposed to be that yin and yang in the tag division. And Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez from Judgment Day. Then we have Jade Cargill versus Naomi. This has been at least a blood feud. That's at least exceeded expectations, knowing the potential that Naomi's had since developing over her heel character. What's poppin', Swerve? AEW was bad. Bro, that show was bad. I'm sorry. I'm going to do a tirade real quick because I tried. I tried to give AEW grace. When it comes to like how they can protrude a show, man, it was so unwatchable. Like when they were doing like the women's battle royale, or it was like a scrambles match or a something pack royale challenge. It was trash, bro. Like the only thing that garnered any attention was probably the main event involving Moxley and Hangman and Mercedes Moné versus Timeless Toni Storm. Because Toni Storm is actually a well-done character. I'll give kudos to Toni Storm. I feel like she's really reinvented herself and took advantage of leaving over to a new environment, using a gimmick, portraying herself, and getting over. That's what you can't say out of the who's who of this BS women's roulette match. And I think it was supposed to be a number one contenders match that Athena won, that I swear People will be shocked when I tell you that she was employed in the roster since like 2021 or 22, and she was like Ring of Honor Women's Champion for like 20 years, bro. Adam Cole versus Kyle Fletcher turned into a four-way match that Dustin Rhodes won. It felt so choreographed, bro. I think the turning off point for me was probably, and I always watch pay-per-views with my family. That's who I grew up watching it. I always try to take time and watch it with my family. And when I mean my family, just me and my little brothers. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, dude. You watch the Swerve Strickland, this is every Young Bucks match, bro. You have never seen anything more choreographed than a Young Bucks match. You go straight into a Hurricane Rana, counter a springboard, go into a super kick, counter into a forearm, then he no-sells the forearm, then two apron hits over with Canadian Destroyers, then they'll go immediately into an obvious Canadian Destroyer. It was so trash. I'll only excuse the put together four-way because at least Adam Cole had a shortcoming with an injury. Same thing with Seth Rollins. I've said that he had a legit ligament tear or something after his match with LA Knight, coming over a springboard. And this was with Seth doing less action because he thought of doing like some type of springboard senton. Then he backflipped over LA Knight, moving out the way, and just popped his leg. Vicky Stark style, bro. Oh, but this is supposed to be like a more refurbished Edge. Why is he still trying to do this mid-card shit when he's supposed to be the legitimate star on the roster now? Because he ain't no legitimate star on the roster now. He never is. Seth Rollins is the equivalent of what happened if we dropped the belt to Chris Jericho back in Triple H's Reign of Terror. We give him more mic time than ever. We give him a legitimate faction with guys that look like they can F guys up. Hell, Braun Breaker already looks like he has more charisma and he has less screen time than him. That's got to be the saddest thing. And like the most obvious things I expected to happen. Young Bucks to lose to Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland. Then I expected somebody, Kenny Omega. No, it was going to be Okada to beat Kenny. Timeless was going to retain because Mercedes Moné would just get heat for the controversy. Knowing her backstage scuffles with Tony Khan, because Tony Khan still has no respect on the locker room for what he's done. And Jon Moxley was going to lose the world title because it was about time. They needed at least a somewhat of a reliable face star that doesn't have connections around the locker room or has a lawsuit. Yeah. I think fans still forgot that Moxley got himself over some heat involving the staff after he assaulted a cameraman live over in the middle of a blood and guts match, I think. He got himself in trouble after that. And he's not even a needle mover to continue any protection with. And most of his matches be the weakest part over the show. At least around like the Hogan era, when Hogan was stinking up the main event of a pay-per-view on WCW, at least people could remember, oh, yeah, that crazy stuff happened involving Hogan with the fireball. What bullshit did you see out of a Moxley match that's of merit other than him taking a spike spot, a thumbtack spot, and then he bursts himself? Prime New Jack can do that in 20 seconds and I get the gist of the match. Fuck out of here. Moxley's just a nerdier Nick Gage with no charisma. Fuck this guy. CZW jobbers, I'd be doing this for some Fent, heroin, and a $20 bill, and my respect does more than Moxley does over for AEW, bro. Fuck this guy, dude. Oh my God. Back and forth, kick out after kick out versus kick out. How is Gunther versus Goldberg more captivating than this? Like, at least Goldberg's doing this as like his last time in the limelight. Wanted to at least get his last words. I think he said he also wanted his last match to be in Israel. Of course, of his Jewish heritage. I'm not going to go over to a political mirror. Just what he wanted to do. I understand. But Jesus Christ, bro. Who you got wasting their hard-earned money on a Evolution pay-per-view? Because don't forget, this isn't the first Evolution. This was like 6 years ago. I was in college, not that far for where Nassau Coliseum was, down over in Long Island, where that's the same place where SummerSlam back in 2002 was. And now this is the all women's pay-per-view where it's going to probably draw as much as the last Rampage episode. You'll see more tarps than people. TNA Wrestling plants on a good day with a bonus on their paycheck are going to show up more on Slammiversary than they are for... Oh my God. I'm not trying to hate. I'm really not, because I think I've talked about in different platforms or different sources, or like in any other times when I was doing reviews, that I don't mind an predominantly exclusive women's pay-per-view or women's weekly showing, knowing that WWE wants to take the women's division out of the sideshow department. That's perfectly fine. You guys got to promote it as such. You got to know what your faces are going to be, and you got to know the demographic that you're trying to instill and know a different way how you can captivate a different audience than the gooner bait, Hippocratic, weirdo, unemployed audience that you guys have out of the regular IWC. Because there's no shot. You guys want the same guys that be like, women's wrestling's the best thing ever. And yet, I'm barely seeing over 10,000 on ticket sales in Nassau Coliseum. New York Liberty can draw more there than Rhea Ripley, for real. Oh my God! I think I saw like 6,600 on them tickets, bro. Oh, and AW ain't safe either. I see why they do freelancing on the indie promotions for certain AEW wrestlers when they don't got work. Because Lance Archer, I saw in the clip, motherfucker is trying to issue free tickets for an AEW event. Oh my God. Oh my God. Lance Archer is doing a buy one, get one free for fucking AEW pay-per-views. Bro, I'll get Jeff Hardy on the stuff while matching up against Hornswoggle. That draw more than Ricochet and Will Ospreay, bro. Fuck out of here. Because I have to pay $55 for front row. No, for nosebleeds. For nosebleeds, fam. WWE be bugging, man. I paid less for closer tickets up on Raw after the pandemic. I wasn't even going to use the excuse after 2019, before 2019, before 2020. Because I think the last time I was even paying for Raw tickets because my little brother wanted to go. And it was like 2022 when they were back in arenas. And now you got people trying to sacrifice paychecks, feeling like, oh, shucks, we missed the Saturday Night Main Event show, but we're going to watch Evolution. I don't know, Dad. You got work. But you got work. Call them. You got work. Okay. I'd rather get SummerSlam tickets. In the nosebleeds. That's like New York rent for nosebleeds in MetLife. Jesus Christ. Come on, be for real, guys. Come on. We're not doing this. The peak ticket sale for like $182, and they're closing off, not because of sellouts, Because of tarpage. Because of tarps. Let me see if I can pull up what's going on. I'll tell you all the results of what happened at Saturday Night Main event. Because it wasn't much. Like these are live exclusive shows. We need to conclude storylines. WWE be doing like 2 to 3 things right, and then they do 10 things wrong. I like that they're pushing more cinematography, that they're pushing over for vignettes. But when you're doing shit that's obviously still getting audiences annoyed, and you're not open to at least trying to add more opportunity to at least focus on trimming fat and knowing the right people to push, you're losing it. We're losing it, Hunter. All because you're not Vince doesn't mean you're not open to criticism. I'm going to keep that a buck. Because I know there's certain content creators, there's certain people that all because he's not Vince doesn't mean he wasn't a sack of shit in the locker room. Doesn't mean that he wasn't part of the clique. That was probably the biggest diva group in the wrestling business. That probably sparked the most negativity to even make Rob Van Dam not fuck with him. You got to be a terrible person to have Rob Van Dam not fuck with you. You know how bad it is to be in the bad graces of a pothead? That's depressing. You can't be doing that. Female wrestlers are unhappy with WWE's idea for a successful for a successful evolution, not according to plan. What? I don't know what you guys were expecting. Okay. It says right here. So there's only 1,784 tickets available. And the current setup is only 10,000. They only set up 6,000 seats over in Atlanta. This is concerning. With only 1,500 unsold in a small arena, where we're going to be for Evolution, folks. Because WWE is obviously not catching the plot here. We're also in Atlanta. And they're probably going to condense the area. They're going to condense the arena. Because they know their demographic. Jesus Christ. All right, I got it right here. Look at this, bro. And this is 2 straight days of wrestling. You'll get as much as a Ring of Honor pay-per-view over combo tickets, over the bare minimum, and around 1,500 tickets available, and you're trying to still sell that out, and the capacity is only 1,500 in this arena. I'm watching Rampage, and you're paying subscription basis for this. It's a sad sight. It truly is. It really is. AEW Collision draws at least a school auditorium for this. So I think the opening match went to Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre, with Jesse Ventura using his geriatric behavior to try to hype up the crowd. And it was a decent back and forth with constant interruptions involving Logan Paul that was with McIntyre after interfering with Jelly Roll. Yes, Jelly Roll. Does he do like country and rap, or it's just country with him? Because I remember the work he was doing beforehand, and I know he's an avid fan of WWE. So I understand why they have him involved in works like this, and they want to push him over on pay-per-view. He looks smaller than Logan Paul. He looks way smaller than Logan Paul. Like, at least what Logan Paul's like, what, 6'2"? And Jelly Roll looks 5'10". I swear I can coach college, high school juniors taller than Jelly Roll. And it was a decent back and forth with some counters into an RKO. Pushed over a near fall. Future Shock reversed into a Claymore after an interruption by Logan Paul. We get the gist. After an out of nowhere RKO disrupted, involving a sucker punch out of nowhere after the victory by Logan Paul after Orton won. Jelly Roll came with the assist, shoving off Logan Paul that ends in a Claymore. After some verbal abuse, sadly no fat shaming because somehow that's not cool to do in the wrestling business anymore, it ends with a backstage segment involving a late interview being like, oh, we couldn't be there in the ring together. I know I shouldn't have had you out there. And then it ends with just, yeah, we're going to see them at SummerSlam. By who? We had two of the GMs be involved in the aftermath after McIntyre assaulted them. You guys only got like a few weeks. Why not just hype it up? With like a lawsuit, you push over a proposition. Jelly Roll doesn't want to file this in court, but he wants y'all in a tag team match. But something to at least freshen up what's going on if you want to make it too predictable. Oh, RK Roll, let's roll. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Then we had Solo Sikoa versus Jimmy Uso. And this match is what you expected with Bloodline rules. And, like, y'all remember the NWO B team? I swear, Aces and Eights went off the floor with it. Like, any shitty faction you remember would beat the shit out of all these Samoans. We got Hikalu, Tangaloa, Krakatawa, Unga Bunga, Lakers in 5. Like, fuck these jobbers, bro. Fuck all of these jobbers. It's like, let's just get the who's of the cheaper Samoans from New Japan that Tony Khan won't even touch. Like, we could have gotten Samoa Joe back. What is Samoa Joe doing? He's the only fat person on the roster that doesn't enjoy being in catering. And yet we want Tangaloa and Hikalu? Are you kidding me? Wow. So Jey Uso was pushing over the upper hand after a couple near falls off some super kicks, a quick Samoan drop, some interference, ending up off a roll up with some assistance involving Tangaloa and Hikalu. After hitting Jimmy Uso with a Samoan spike, ends up with, we forgot Jacob Fatu's the actual one feuding with Solo. So this was just a fodder match to put over on the show, just to hype up that Solo still exists. He's the heel. Yes, somehow we beat Jacob Fatu for the U.S. title. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to stretch it over for SummerSlam for some type of tribal queef rules. Jesus Christ. The only time these guys can be employed? What, we're going to pull a Game of Thrones storyline or Fast and Furious storyline when we get Zilla Fatu to wear face paint? And he'll probably look like Dominic Mysterio. At least it was cool to like Jacob Fatu. I think it was a bit too soon. You could have waited until SummerSlam or do it on an episode of SmackDown and make it feel more unpredictable. It's not my opinion. I'm not the booker. I'm not losing $3 billion in debt. I'm only losing a couple thousand. Then we got LA Knight versus Seth Rollins. That ended up with a poor ligament damage after 2 top rope maneuvers down the middle. It was going decent back and forth. Superplex countered into a buckle bomb, some decent high pacing spots, everything looking a bit equal level. Until it came out with the heels coming in over the run in involving LA Knight. It was okay of a match. I could say I still don't get the gist because I know like the sentiment is like Seth Rollins is taking over. We don't want him to cash in, bro. I'm telling you, I watch another champions. I still don't get the point of the run in. If you guys didn't fuck with Seth to begin with, like he doesn't hold all the cards. It's not like when he was part of the Authority. I'm not even bringing up Vince in the matter, by the way. This is when Triple H was appointing the Authority, and he doesn't really incline himself over his storylines. Our GMs are so cooked out. They are so I don't know why they're so minuscule. Like why in modern wrestling I see the bare minimum of heel authority figures now. Vicky Guerrero, nope. I'm joking about Brad Maddox. You know I'm joking. You know the only reason you guys remember Brad Maddox. It wasn't because he was the GM of Raw or when he was a ref in that Hell in a Cell match with Punk and Ryback. You remember him for one reason, and that's that little film he made with Paige with Xavier Woods. It's okay. We all watched. I'd show it. I'm joking. And then we got Eric Bischoff. Teddy Long was a heel, but he was in his managerial career when he was like, I think his name was like Rob Myron or something. I know he was also managing Mark Henry. They had Jazz as well, but it was like primarily a heel faction manager he was until like SmackDown took him as GM. I think that was right after Paul Heyman got fired. Or that was when Kurt Angle was GM. And now we got these 2 stepfathers. It's like, I thought we were a family, guys. Like, man, if you don't chill out. But I know that you're a bottom for Mickey James and the other one's just bald with a mediocre ROH career. I don't know how you can't have a great Ring of Honor career. Just look at you. You look like you gave a 5-star match somewhere in your life and nobody, not even Dave Meltzer, would remember it. Like, Jesus Christ. Adam Pearce. Bald fuck looks like he's the villain from the Chipmunks movies from back in the day. He does look like Ian Hawke with a beard. And Nick Aldis, even though I do respect him as a wrestler, he's a good wrestler, especially from his times in TNA and NWA. Like the bare minimum of a contrast of ideals, their own ways to make their own format. They don't have their own favoritism or their own narrative of how they want to appoint their own stars, make their own shows, or format the way they want to make their matches more exciting over if they want to make them more fan-oriented, more ratings-oriented, more excitement-oriented, car crashing-oriented. Like, there's so many ways to appoint that. I feel like there hasn't been a style to make Raw or SmackDown because there's not even more mainstays. Watch the season premiere, do another ratings grab whenever you guys want to pretend whoever's a Raw or SmackDown superstar. I've been asking for years, y'all do not need the draft. You guys do not need the brand split. You're overly bloating on talents because you guys can't book your wrestlers. Jesus. Still going on. And I don't even consistently cover wrestling that much anymore. And I'm already getting a headache like I raised 3 kids. Then we got Gunther versus Goldberg for the World's Heavyweight Championship. At least this lasted one commercial break before they pulled over the plug and ended with Gunter winning off a sleeper hold. This was still like barely miles better. Because let's give it a buck. You're still doing tribalism for a wrestling fed in 2025. You're either unemployed, musty, and you know she said no, Jim. You shouldn't be wearing a Yeet shirt in the public. The way Fanatics are making those merchandise, you'll be surprised. You'll just be surprised who's wearing a modern wrestler shirt. Nobody. And look, there's certain wrestlers that I like. I like Karrion Kross. I like LA Knight. Motor City Machine Guns. I do like that they got Motor City Machine Guns on SmackDown. Yeah, most of those merchandise you can't wear in public. Be for real. There's just fans that know their lane when it comes to fashion, when it comes to being even What Culture. The What Culture staff doesn't wear wrestling stuff unless it's in the workplace. I am not wearing a Bailey shirt. I am not wearing a fucking. I don't have social skills shirt in public. You're kidding. You're kidding. And Goldberg gives a great speech referencing his undefeated streak, referencing that he never lost in his hometown, then says his gratefulness for the fans. So that's at least pretty decent for what we know Goldberg has done to this business. I felt like it lasted way too long, especially with the over promotion of the match with him and Gunther. And I don't mind vignettes teasing over the commentary referencing it. It's just like the overabundance of just footage from 30 fucking years ago, bro. Like, the nigga wrestled not that long ago. He did like a couple Saudi events. He came back in Survivor Series in 2016. Bro, that's damn near a decade ago. We didn't have to go all the way from the last millennia. We know he beat DDP. Go back when he came back at like pushing 50 and the guy already beat Brock Lesnar in under 5 minutes. He won the Universal title. Then he did some Saudi blood money events, giving a brainbuster to The Undertaker. Probably one of the worst pay-per-view matches in history. And then he faced The Fiend, and I think he squashed him in a couple of near falls. You know what? Yeah, bring back when he beat Hogan back at Nitro to win the world title. Please. Bring back when he was squashing the Raven Flock, because I'm not doing that. WWE becoming everything people hated. WCW 40 years old. Hogging up the main event and pushing the young talent constantly. And oh, yeah. Carmelo Hayes, you book him, he'll just be squashed by Brock Lesnar. After he won the world title and his wife gave birth. You get the gist. Blake Monroe, or you guys know her as Mariah May. Y'all have any high expectations involving her? Because also I heard Britt Baker has been teased a lot to leave because of, I don't think it's even contractual disputes. She really is sick of Tony Khan shit. A lot of the who's the women in that all-in match really shows like the fragmented star power in the women's division. If there was no Mercedes Moné or not even Thunder Rosa, because I feel like Thunder Rosa's fallen off without Britt Baker. If there was not even a Tony Storm, how they even fumbled it back on Jade Cargill. Everybody that has a leak of talent on AEW is knowing that this is just AEW is just an auditionary period to just get a TV deal of a Fed until WWE catches interest on you, and then they release you. And then you sign over for cheap until they pay you when you're up in the higher card. That's why this guy, like, I saw this guy talking about this over on IG, and he was like, I think it was called Kayfabe Podcast or something, Keeping the Kayfabe, when he was like, this is what I don't get. So you leave for less money to go to developmental. Yes, I'm gonna get paid more when I get booked more. That's a big difference. My paycheck's gonna be looking different when I'm up consistently on developmental, and they still book me when I go to the main roster. Look how elevated certain ex AEW stars are going. What are they doing with their pillars on AEW? These guys making six figures, and none of their toys are falling off the shelves of children. It's man children. It's a bunch of Grim Toy Show weirdos. But unlike them, they're not in their fourth marriage. Fucking losers, bro. They don't get the gist of how the business works. When you're just pushing over for your contract expires and you're being like Matt Cardona, and you're not making that consistent, decent revenue. Especially when you weren't getting booked over double-digit years. And now Blake Monroe's going to be probably pushing over Bank. That girl's going to be already getting a pay-per-view check when she already came over from developmental. AEW was barely doing that with newer acquisitions they just signed. I remember when they were overhyping John Morrison when he got signed, and then later on I just see him on Ring of Honor weekly episodes. Be for real, guys. Come on. We could just say it with me. Tony Khan can't book. Those bookers of the year shit, he's just the owner. He's a PG-13 version of Donald Sterling without the alleged racism, but he does do drugs over his free time with the weirdos that he inappropriately touches on live TV. It's okay. It's okay. Because there's no shot. I do agree that some of the youth talent in the WWE are getting owed, but some of the guys that they are elevating in a consistent stance is at least either organically getting over or at least in a reasonable stance where we see them consistently, like Jade Cargill, and actually respecting people with tenure. Who the hell's going to tune in because Dustin Rhodes won the TNT title? Instead of Naomi turning heel, winning the Money in the Bank, she's probably going to rip off some pieces of hair off Jade Cargill on pay-per-view, then cash in on the women's. Like, there's at least some stretch of Triple H's long-term storytelling that I can get the gist with, but incredibly flawed. I think certain fans can agree on that. If you guys don't, please just let me know. Whatever I'm missing. Because certain fans be trying to say that like I don't ask for constructive criticism. Because at least Triple H has a formula. He can make a sub-average wrestling show, but he can't elevate his talent. Tony Khan can elevate his wrestling show where it's watchable, and he devalues his talent. That's why you're hearing about those goddamn hotel incidents and the mistreatment of talent that are on the bench. And then later on, you guys complain about WWE's monopolization of the territories. Oh, but Ring of Honor was a dying fed to begin with. 20 years down the drain, that's why they take away all their licensing rights and still can't push over a TV deal. Where at least ECW was on Sci-Fi for a few years before ratings kept plummeting. Like, come on. Be for real. This Saturday Night Main event was a 4. A nice 4. Bare minimum of stuff I wanted to probably continue watching. I think nobody gets bored off an RKO. That'd be the only thing. I wish the Goldberg match was at least somewhat more watchable. But I thought it was decent with what they went through. Solo and Jimmy Uso, you could have the US title match on the SmackDown. Y'all could have had that shit on the SmackDown. Nobody would tear an eyebrow. I'd rather watch Chad Gable's luchador gimmick than this. Like Dragon Lee. Braun Baker could have had we could have had a 6-man, and it could have had less of a chance of injury for Seth if he wanted to keep him fresh because of his lack of a live event schedule. Because he wanted to risk him getting injured, and he's still doing high risk maneuvers when he's supposed to be a top heel. And he's doing flick sentons into backflips, and he tears the same, and he suffers another ligament like he did when he tried to pull a sunset fit powerbomb on Kane on the table. And I remember that because I saw that shit happen on live camera. That shit kept him on the shelf until after Mania 32. He didn't come back until Extreme Rules. The other thing is, hopefully, he's back healthy. And he's Money in the Bank, too. So why not just stick LA Knight in the trap and it becomes a handicap match with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed? Anybody tell me what happened at that Great American Bash show? Because I think that happened as well. Evolution will happen until a couple hours from now because now it's 12:04. It's after midnight. It's either time for you guys to go to bed or wake up from your post-nut clarity or your hangover. You know, live it how you live, bro. I'm not going to change you. Jey Uso main event. What the hell's happened to this bitch? Oh my god. Yikes. And anybody watch that 7-star class? I'm waiting for Dave Meltzer. I can find it. What do you think he's going to glaze Omega versus Okada because they wrestled on the AEW pay-per-view? Hold on. I got it. I got X open. Hold on. Dave Meltzer been doing what he does best, fabricating his sources and saying the dumbest crap in the wrestling business. Shout out to Swerve because I never knew he was. I did not know he was making you buying his sources, bro. I did not know that. I feel like Kurt Angle never deserved a 5-star match to begin with. Not even one with Shawn. Not his matches with Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, Triple H, Chris Benoit, Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton. Not better than Kenny Omega. Just saying. Kenny Omega is more good than Kurt Angle. What the fuck? No. You know what? You're all poor and racist. What the hell? No, that's just a fact. Who said that? Who said that's a fact? What's your source? My source is my source. You have to pay $15 a month for your source. Your source, your dirt sheet is a primary source. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Don't you know who I am? I'm a big deal in the wrestling business. Tony Khan was in my sleepovers all the time with baby oil. Oh, God, I'm going to hell. I'm so going to hell. Jesus Christ. I'll be surprised because I don't think we'll get the numbers of the ticket sales going into. Because I'm not going to lie, when I was watching the entrances for All In, I didn't hear shit until I heard Edge come back to save Christian Cage. You'll be surprised how in a bigger capacity the All In was in where were they? Dallas? They were in the Cowboy Stadium while while WWE was in a 15K arena. And you'll see gradually how poor. Even though preferably, I'd rather 20K arena for an event, 30K arena at most for wrestling events. Even for a WrestleMania, we can do like 50,000, 40,000. I know capacity and numbers will mark up on your shareholders, especially for WWE standard. But in my opinion, I feel like you need that atmosphere to uptake your audience numbers. And plus, you're just going to be making bank off monetization anyway. That's what WWE's been doing. They can make a bank. That's why you see logos everywhere in the ring now. Do you think it really makes a difference? Because I got 60,000 day one, then 50,000, a record breaking 50,000 in day two. Because they buy two tickets, Hunter. You don't know how this works. Okay. Oh. I just heard that Goldberg is dead in the middle of the ring. When the hell did that happen? Oh, just now. Oh, cope. You can see the writing on the wall. WWE, take notes. This is how you do a celebrity appearance without ruining the show. With, oh my God, the Rizzler and the Boom guy. That's probably the most relevant roster pickup on AEW. We bring the boom. Let's bring it up. Let's count AEW's numbers for last week. Boom, boom, boom. That's it. That's it. That's all I got. That's their numbers. Like I think they kept getting 570,000 per week on Dynamite episodes. They're still live or they're taped. They feel taped with their audience. It ain't 2019 no more. I think AEW fans need to understand that. Hangman will be the first cowboy that's a world champion in Dallas since '96. That's the best sign I've seen so far. AEW All In surpasses WrestleMania 35 as the longest. Damn, yeah, that paper. That lasts until like 1 p.m., bro. Tony Khan knows that your fans are unemployed. Yeah, it was not like a 1 p.m. show, and it ended like before the second to last match because we were still getting updates after, like, because Bryan Danielson came in as a run-in to interfere, and Hangman won when he was like hanging Jon Moxley with a chain on some freaky shit, and that was Swerve helping them out because they just went into an alliance. What time this started? Because there's no shot this started at 1 a.m. in the brother. What? 3 p.m., bro. 3. And the show ended like mad late, dude. India had to wait until 1:30 in the fucking morning to watch a wrestling pay-per-view. Central Time and Pacific Time has to be a bitch, bro. The only people that probably had it the best was English people at 8 p.m. And all around Europe was like an hour later. So you're telling me that you guys probably be getting a haircut around this time, spending time with family, going to the gym, just doing anything other than watching wrestling at this point. Obviously, I wanted to leave work or stop hanging out with my friends because I wanted to see Ricochet and I think what was it Hiromu Takeshita and MJF and Adam Cole versus Kyle Fletcher. And the Young Bucks. Like, this is a Ring of Honor main event. You paid probably $60 for this. This is a new low, even for me. I don't think I've ever paid for a live pay-per-view since 2015. And that was WrestleMania. Do we have any more information? Because Adam Cole was contemplating injury. Oh, right. Darby Allin came back as well. I had to make a joke about him somehow falling all the way from Mount Everest to hit Dallas, apparently. Yeah, my geography skills suck. To help and jump Jon Moxley. So they're probably still going to continue this Death Riders faction for the next remainder until probably September or August. No, not until August. September or October. Until they implode, or they just do another Blood and Guts in a random special where it's like the 500th episode of Dynamite. 400th. And we have like Moxley bleeding like it's a college freshman in just the first few minutes of the match, fan. Like, you'll be surprised. We got to get that Dallas Cowboy slander out there. Rest in peace to the people that fell in that incident over in the flood over in Texas. That's a shame. This would be the greatest AEW All-In card of all time. Hell no. The best All-In still goes to the one when Punk decked Jungle Boy. And then they got him fired. That was probably the best one because at least it came with the best controversy. So she creatively controlled her loss. Yikes. Also, you know who was there? The wife of Bray Wyatt, JoJo, was singing the entrance for Swerve Strickland in his tag team match. That was nice to see her still looking voluptuous. Respectfully, of course. Respectfully. I didn't mean that. I would, though. Ricochet, thankfully, knowing that all he had to do was wrestle and then do a promo to sell a match. Because there's a lack of selling with him. And I think the best option for the women's division was for Toni Storm to retain. In my opinion, I don't think there is much carrying over Mercedes to just pull the belt away, be this belt collector 2.0 when she's not really drawing a dime when it comes to her attention, even though she's a good wrestler. And kudos to Jim Ross coming back after his fight with cancer. So we can talk about upsides on AEW. We can talk about upsides. It's good to see good old JR back and healthy, man. Thankfully, I don't have a lot of loved ones that go for that. And literally, Bryan Danielson came back as like the Blue Blazer type shit to just running knee. Who is it? Claudio Castagnoli knows Wheeler, Utah. That looks like I know what deck you run in Magic the Gathering. Ain't nobody, nothing ever. Ain't nobody. I forgot what they call that new unification belt for Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada. It's called the Undisputed Belt or something. Because that was a unification match for the International Championship and the Continental Championship. I think they called it the Oh, God. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Tony Khan. I don't think I have the how many times we're going to teach you this lesson, old man.
on fire!
Like fucking Christ. Oh god. This is some universe mode type creative, bro. Oh yikes. Because what's gonna happen with Ring of Honor? Because I swear I think Athena's the only like run of attention on that in that show to give it any merit. What's gonna be the direction with Moxley getting back to world title after him like holding that belt hostage for like a whole year? God damn. So Dynamite was getting July 2nd, 584,000 people were watching. And that was just like I think by the past week. Jesus Christ. When was the last time they hit 600,000? They really are in NXT territory. And we were roasting them to even comparing themselves. Damn! 736,000 on their Mexico, their Grand Slam Mexico edition of Dynamite. And now they're getting the bare minimum where they're nearing 500,000 flat. Me personally, I would just pull the plug like WCPW. In my opinion. In my opinion. Because how much longer do you think AEW is going to last? With the bare minimum of the buys they're pulling off. In this moment of time. Because right now I feel like they're in a safer space than they were over this time period. But earlier, I think around before Revolution, we were like totally in the negative. Like we're even like anti-WWE heads. Hell, even anti Vince McMahon heads. We're like, yeah, AEW isn't really hitting like it used to. It doesn't really want me to kidnap any of the wrestlers. Jim, what? Oh, I can't say that out loud? No. Anymore? What do you mean any? Never mind. So the best performance of the night was Rizzler. Let's just give it to him, folks. He deserves it. Any of you guys are going to be watching the Evolution pay-per-view. And if you are, send me the link of the streaming service you're using. Because I know you're not paying for it. I'm probably going to close off a bit here. Thank everybody that took the time to watch the channel. I'm going to take my Pepto and a painkiller.